I think if you generally believe you're in the -1 to 0 stage, do not commit to anything. Do something when you have extreme conviction on it that at least for a decade, you will not have to change the core purpose. Technologies will change, approaches will change, but the reason you started up really should not change at all. We only want to build products that we will be the users of. I think a first real crisis came after we put the physical product out. The first thing wrong was we were selling the vehicle at the wrong price. The second thing was basically just stay the course. Don't get distracted. Just fix what you have. And COVID forced that. End of that 1 year journey, we actually had positive gross margins. If there's anything that you're building in the company, establish the guiding principle, wane on that for 6 to 12 months, hire people in that mold yourselves so that initial resistance is lower, then step back. A founder should build every part of the organization themselves first.
Tarun doesn't need an introduction, so I'm going to skip on that. However, Tarun, we'll get you started off with a bit of, your story is really special, right? It rarely happens that someone starts a company at college. I forget the 7 months of Ashok Leyland for you in the middle, but and kind of the full discovery from going from -1 to 0 and taking it all the way onto the flight path. I think we'd be very curious to know what are those interesting. Maybe also it might be useful if you can just talk to us about influences growing up and what got you to the point, because often when kids are 17, 18, 19, 20-year old, they have a bunch of different motivators, but you almost started off by thinking of how do we get an alternate to a more efficient ICE engines, or how do we make ICE engines more efficient. So just talk to us about what got you started on that journey. And what were the big influences growing up leading into that decision?
Growing up, the only thing worth calling out is extremely standard stuff. Marks ज़्यादा है तो science लो, science लिया तो engineering करेंगे. No rocket science there, no major discovery of life. The only thing worth calling out here is that extremely lazy, optimized throughout my life for the least effort path. Mostly because I really liked my video games. I really liked not putting effort, and family was a big fan of it. So went to the school that was close enough to cycle to. Went for JEE coaching only because one opened up very close to home and I could literally walk there. And only went there because they were willing to do 1.5 hour sessions every alternate day, and that's it, which was rarity for JEE coaching. Stayed in a school which really is, I'm ashamed to admit what they taught me, that didn't really teach me much, but they never gave us homework. So, and the school was 4 hours a day. I think that played a huge part in how I've thought about a lot of decisions in life later on. The biggest thing is I really do not like competition. I really have always hated the idea of competing. And I think now that I had one of these coaches really go drill for a month in my head and figure out where does it originate from, why do you hate competition? And he finally did this really expensive exercise to figure this out. It's because you were lazy in your early years. And I think that's very valuable. If you're lazy, the thrill of, like waking up every day and competing on the same shit that everybody's already doing for the last several years just doesn't seem worth it. You want to do something that others are not doing, mostly because it's less competition, aasan hoga. I think that's really helped us. Now I can give a much more positive spin to it, that it really differentiated us because we didn't do what competition was doing. And turns out it's actually a very good idea for building a business, having a very differentiated positioning. I have met a lot of founders who actually I think would get a lot of high by winning. I don't get that high because I'm not competing. I generally hate the idea of competition. So that's the most enduring thing that I think I got out of my childhood. I was very lazy. College, mostly characterized by looking for a nice fancy job. Went to the entrepreneurship club because everybody was walking around in suits and I thought that's what you need to get in a consulting job. Really kept hoping, praying ki HBS 2+2 lag jayega. Even got the interview, didn't clear, so had to find alternate paths in life. Okay, that's not fully true, but Did get into entrepreneurship because I thought I would get a job out of it. Got pulled into a life changing experience when I went to Stanford. So there was a 1 week conference of kinds, and like just blew my mind because the idea of entrepreneurship completely changed going to Stanford. Then I think you don't need to go to Stanford now. Bangalore is amazing that way. But back in 2009, not even 2009, first second year of college, this was like mind blowing because everybody was starting up, and it just hits you that you can actually just create value. You can actually just create that out of while still being a student without having teams and without having a large company behind you. um, Changed our perspective on entrepreneurship, made us actually think about starting up. Found a co-founder who was very hardworking, and that sucked us down this rabbit hole of building for 3 years in college. So we were building clean combustion engines. So you're right in that sense. Higher efficiency engines. These are called Stirling engines. I don't know if anybody remembers the thermodynamics, but there's a Stirling cycle. And Stirling cycle is the only thing that can actually get you to Carnot cycle efficiencies. And those two statements really used to get excite us. So we were trying to build Stirling engines for 3 years in college, and we were calling ourselves Ather Energy while doing all of it, and that made us really passionate about the energy sector. More than starting up, really made us passionate about the energy sector. And energy is one of those sectors where the scale of impact is, at least you can academically argue, is just enormous, right? Like if you crack something there. So became big fans of things that can have big impact. Didn't get a great job, didn't get the HPS and 2+2. So finally convinced ourselves that we should really give this startup thing a real shot. Decided to go to Ashok Leyland so that we stay in tech for at least a few more years. Otherwise, the natural path was write CAT and go to MBA or like look for a banking job ASAP. But gave ourselves 2 years to do it. Came back to college. Professors were kind enough, so we started. So we left our jobs. Did a very garage-ish origin. So we started building battery packs out of a lab. And then things kept snowballing from there, and those battery packs became a vehicle. Those vehicles became a pitch. The pitch became a startup. The startup got funding, and Ather Energy started.
Amazing. Oh, that's amazing. I almost always say all good engineers are lazy at heart.
Actually, I want to make the lazy point a little bit more. I think people really underestimate how valuable being lazy can be for your life. So we were going to start up. The original idea was to assemble a battery pack only for the purposes of showing off a charger. Essentially, we were trying to do a swappable battery pack, and we said we'll assemble battery packs from China and build a swapping station, very much like Sun Mobility today or Gogoro's network today. But we were lazy in some ways. So we said, you know what, let's not jump into it. Let's not commit to this idea yet. Let's just leave our jobs, hang around. Let's take our sweet time. So we left our jobs in February 2013. And for the next 9 months, I kid you not, we were sitting in the lab in our shorts every day. Faltu ke fande. Every day we would theorize, come up with new philosophies of life. We would keep debating whether it's worth building something, what is the joy of creation. If we ever built a company, would we ever hire anybody except an engineer? Why we should hire a non-engineer? What kind of org structure we like? Whether we care about building a brand. Should we be an unknown energy company in the back end, or should we be a brand outside? And we just didn't want to commit. We're like, until we really like something, we'll not do it only. Like, we're not just going to say, yeah, come on, today is the date, we've got to decide and like, just start up, man, karo. Like, koi jaldi nahi. Hum log baithe hai yahan pe. Mummy papa ne 2 saal diye to decide all of this. Tab tak we will not commit to it. Sure. I think that really helped us, because honestly, we could have committed to a lot of ideas which were half-baked. I think we would not have found them worth pursuing in a couple of years. We would have moved on, because starting a vehicle startup in India by becoming the largest investor in R&D ever in e-two-wheelers within 2 years was not the right approach. The reason we stayed on that path and we never strayed away, early team members at Ather will tell you, Ather has never pivoted. It's been 12 years. There's been no practical pivot in this company. And yeah, we are proud of that. We are really proud of that. And that's because we just took so much time to think about this that by the end of it was a high conviction, high clarity idea, high clarity life purpose. So it helps. I think they were just asking me. SPC calls it -1, apparently, this phase. I think if you generally believe you're in a -1 to 0 stage, do not commit to anything. Don't feel like you're under any time pressure. Like if you have a family pressure, then don't start up, by the way. But if you don't have a family pressure, really, give yourselves time. Don't say, yeah, 2 months in startup in, 3 months founder in. Like, don't. Give yourself 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. Do something when you have extreme conviction on it that at least for a decade, you will not have to change the core purpose. Technologies will change, approaches will change, but the reason you started up really should not change at all for a long enough time. I think the amount of peace it gives you in life is just so valuable. It's just unbelievable.
While you almost made it sound that it was the entire evolution of Ather was incremental and almost inductive in nature, but there's one thing for startups that they're almost always hard, right? And I personally believe what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And often all of these phases of wherein every tough phase that you go through, right, changes the team, changes you as a founder. Talk to us about some instances, right, wherein especially early on, you said that you never pivoted, right? And the early team kind of uh, stayed true to the mission, right? What were those few early maybe struggles or hard phases that you had to go through, which kind of strengthened the conviction and continued building on the momentum?
So the first 2-3 years, very little, honestly, because we had already taken so much time to think through what we want to do and what we want to build, that there was very little that certainly came and challenged that construct. I would say the first 350 hires were just like a straight line path, like very little deviation, very little confusion, very little moments of crisis, or like lack of faith, yeah, like back and forth, or people falling out. We had no attrition until we were 400 people. Like I think we had one admin guy who left, one guy who moved on for his masters, and one person who got hired for ethics. That's it. Like nobody else. Nobody otherwise said, you know what, better things to do in life. Let me do that. Let me do this. So the first 3-4 years of Ather were, and now that I look back on it,
It was really special. I must say.
really special.
Yeah.
I really do miss some of those aspects now. I think a first real crisis came after we put the physical product out. That is 2019. We have launched our scooter in 2018 in Bangalore and 2019 in Chennai. The scooters landed to great reception. People do believe that Ather builds cool products, quality, really refreshing. But also what every investor had told us at this point has turned out true, that it's one thing to build a cool concept. It's one thing to build an automotive scale manufacturing business. And true to their prediction, we did a really shit job of everything apart from the concept. Though we had begun production, it took us 9 months to figure out our cost of production. Like I couldn't tell our board in successive board meetings that, what is your cost of production? Aapka margin kya hai? I'm like, for me to tell you what my margin is, I first need to know what my costs are, and I still do not know what my bill of material is. Work is on actively to figure it out. We seem to be discovering flaws every time we put it together. So it was quite terrible. We landed up at a cost structure that turned out 3 times higher than what we originally hoped for, which meant our selling price was obviously shot to hell. I was so off. It was so massively off that one of our investors really insisted, boss, you have to get a consulting company to step in and help you fix this. And we had panicked at this point. So we got them in. So we got McKinsey, BCG, Bain nahi aaya tha, AD Kearney, at least 6 of them gave us different offers. The minimum offer was 2 crores a month and 20 crores minimum. And that company offered a 30% cost reduction over the next 2 years. I'm like, listen, I'm producing this vehicle. The bill of material is 3.6 lakhs. 30% will not fix this scooter, okay? What can you do for something in the range of 70%, okay? And obviously nobody was biting. So between this and us finding no answers, there was a big crisis of faith. That was the first big crisis of faith at Ather, 2019, a full 5 years after starting up. Because starting from me, just too many of us started thinking that this was actually a mistake. We had a good thing, but this doesn't add up. Value nahi hai isme. So I panicked and I kickstarted two things. One was, why don't we build a new scooter? Maybe the scooter was wrong. This fancy performance scooter with an aluminum frame is all a terrible idea. Normal scooter banayenge to it'll be great. Like we'll get the right unit economics. And teams are very dedicated. They really believed in us as founders. So yeah, if they are saying like it has to be right, everybody starts running towards it. Like those posters still there on the wall. It was called Project Pure. One that will finally have a pure business model, not this unclean one. Those guys ran for 6-8 months. The other thing I did as like a backup, because I knew that was going to fail. So my backup was we will actually get out of this vehicle business completely. It's a bad idea. Vehicles are not worth making. We will actually become like Android. We will become a platform company. We will will open source our entire vehicle tech and we'll sell our software as license out of software and we'll make money selling people software. It was actually not a bad business model, except that not a single two-wheeler company bit into it. So we literally went and told people that, listen, we will give you this Ather 450 that we launched. People love it. We'll give it to you free. You make it. Use our supply chains. You don't need to give us any money. Take all of it. Give us like maybe $10-20 million as a one-time fee, just for because you're nice, and just like let us build your battery packs, for example. That too on a fixed gross margin. They're not the lowest gross margins. Nobody bit. Nobody accepted it. I couldn't sell that also. So even worse crisis of faith. At the end of that, I realized the first path was already lost because you can't build a new vehicle with the money available. And the second one, nobody's biting. But as you said, doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. We came out stronger out of it for two reasons. First, funnily for us, COVID hit. That forced us to reset ourselves because we were not willing to accept that there were a couple of things wrong here. The first thing wrong was we were selling the vehicle at the wrong price. 1.2 lakhs was not the right price for that vehicle. We needed to up it to 1.6, 1.7 lakhs, which we did. The second thing was basically just stay the course. Don't get distracted. Don't do all these other platform shenanigans and like new vehicle shenanigans. Close down everything. Whoever wants to work on it, let them go. Just fix what you have. You will fix it. And COVID forced that. End of that 1 year journey, we actually had positive gross margins. Yeah. So Ather basically almost died. And I think we would have accepted it because we had a strategic on a cap table already. So we would have honestly accepted that path. COVID came, so we knew even that path is shut. So we were forced to sort of, find something new and came out of it.
This is amazing. Thanks for sharing. I was also reading your interview during when there were the big delays, right? And I think you'd given this to Quads. And then also around the when you had the situation where 450X caught fire, right? I think in both of them, I saw that in general, the way you came across and shared your point of view and the things that you were struggling with, I felt was disarmingly honest, right? And I'm just curious what part of this low attrition and people staying the course, you think it kind of you owe it to your maybe being that honest and authentic self of yourself, right? And even when I think there's like a period wherein you had like a big pay cut in the company between 10 to 30% people, right? And even then, what I read, and I'm not sure whether that's right or not, there was hardly any attrition, right? So tell me what works, right? Both from the kind of culture that you have at Ather and maybe the leadership style that maybe you and Swapnil have been able to bring to the table.
So you're right. Generally, we've had a culture right from day one of extreme transparency and honesty. We only tell you stories that we truly believe in, or we don't. We acknowledge it also. And I think you're right. It has helped because what's not known publicly is that before we went public, Ather survived not one down round, but 3 successive down rounds. The first down round was a 60% valuation cut. A 40% valuation cut. The second down round was a 50% valuation cut on the 40% valuation cut. And the third valuation cut came about 18 months later. Thoda valuation had corrected at that point. We dropped it by 65% again. Um, these are good enough reasons for most people to move on. I've heard this saying that most companies don't survive one big valuation cuts. I've heard most they definitely don't make it via two valuation cuts. We had three very large down rounds. Not like 10% cut hurts the ego, like fights happen, people move on. Like 60%, 40%, 50%. Um, I think and by the way, when these 60 and 50% valuation cuts happened within 6 months of each other, we also told everybody that, listen, we don't have the money. We don't want to let go of people because I think we're all building the right thing and we need everybody's bandwidth. So here is a box. Please willingly donate whatever you feel comfortable with. So the option was we can't afford to pay you your last year's variable. We do believe you all deserve 100% variable for what we have achieved, but we can't pay you. Legally, we have the right to not pay you. So I'm just telling you we can't afford to pay you. So I'm going to make it zero. But promise, we'll make it up to you whenever we have the cash. Everybody asked us, and we then did this series of conversations with the entire organization between me and Swapnal. I think we was like 500 people at this point. So we met people in groups of 5 to 6 each. So we did a lot of conversations. And we were just transparent to everybody. Listen, like the money left in the bank is like 40 crores. If you pay this variable, it won't help us, right? We'll just run out of steam and you will have to move on anyways. So I recommend don't move on. But if you do get cash, we'll pakka make up for whatever you lose here. And the other thing is, if you're willing to take a pay cut, please take one. We will make it up in equity to the best extent possible. We did deliver on both those. People who took the variable cut, sorry, everybody had to take the variable. We paid them the variable 1 year later when we got the cash. And I think we gave everybody, I think I could be wrong on this aspect, but I think we gave everybody a 50% bonus for the variable amount that was withheld. So one of the best returns they made. And everybody who took a pay cut, we gave them equity. We gave them ESOPs at the price of that double valuation down rounds, and we gave them twice the amount of stock. So if you took a 10 lakh pay cut, we gave you 20 lakh stock that by the time this was corrected, already become 80 lakhs. In a sense, we didn't need to, but people, I think these 2-3 incidents successively built on each other generated a reputation in the company that Ather will always play fair. So if you can, play for the long run, you will not regret it. So even when the third down round happened, nobody asked us the question. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, obviously this will make up. We'll go public. No, everything will be figured out. I think we were very lucky. We had team members like that.
I must say, like, I'm possibly going to say this multiple times, but this is really special, right? Often the most, and I say for founders, the most difficult stakeholder is the man in the mirror, right? Or the woman in the mirror, right? And what was your personal self-talk during this period? I was just wondering, right? Because this is often what we create is also our identity, right? And when that identity is taking those kind of hits, you also, I'm sure you also took it personally. So I'm just curious on what your personal self-talk was and what your advice would be to founders who will possibly, inevitably, definitely run into crises like these.
Definitely don't put up false bravado. That's the thing that eats you the most. Be super honest with your teams. Be super transparent. Tell people that, listen, we do believe this should work, but we only have money for so much time, right? Do tell people why we do think it's good to do this versus not this. It's just the basics. Just like communicate as much, because I think if you've communicated everything, the load is sort of off your shoulders. You don't feel like, nobody knows what's happening, and when all this crumbles, they'll all suddenly realize their ESOPs are worth nothing, they have to find new jobs. First, we were never worried people will have to find new jobs because that's like, they're all good, they'll find the jobs. And Ather already had a very solid, very, very good reputation in the market that the talent would get poached comfortably. I was not very worried about it. But the ESOPs part, we were all so honest with everybody all the time that we almost always presented ESOP as like, hey, here is a bonus. If you ever make it, this could be worth something. But you know what the reality is. It kept the load a little light when things went hard. Also, I think we've been in some ways ridiculously optimistic. We've almost never believed that this won't work. So at a founder level, between us, that's kind of maybe helped out. Family helps, obviously. I don't think it's easy to be as transparent with family as with team members, but yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. You talked about the fact that you got lucky with Swapnil and that you and Swapnil got to start this together. And that relationship is now what? 13 years. The company's been around. So you guys have been possibly known each other.
2007.
2007. Wow.
18 years.
18 years. Again, the journey, the relationship has come of age, right? Talk to us. What has been the secret sauce, right, in the relationship? What has worked over the years? And often, especially relationships that have lasted for so long, founders often start resembling each other, both in terms of value systems and the way they approach. So, might also be useful if you can share what are the areas where you think you guys have converged, and what are the areas where you possibly think you guys are still working at.
Yes, I'm first very grateful that this relationship's lasted 18 solid years, and I have to acknowledge it's not very common. It's not the obvious path. Well, one thing that helped us is before we started, we had already spent 5 years in college together, same hostel, same department, and we spent 3 years out of those 5 trying to build this company. So we already knew a lot of our value systems. And college puts you in a lot of those paths, right? Like those tests happen. Like, are you going to cheat on this test or not? And you both realize that, okay, this is how we both think. And there's a certain amount of respect that automatically happens because of it. When you don't need to push yourselves and somebody does, you find your work soulmate in that sense in college. So I think college is one of the best places to find co-founders. And I think if there's one thing that I think people make a mistake of is trying to rush into their co-founders very quickly. It's such a long journey. You want to really like not just the person or their capabilities, but their value systems. So that does take time. We got the time, so we were lucky. Then after that, when we started up also, we started up with really nothing to offer to each other. And the thing that, for 1 year, we are not going to start up with just hang around in a lab without any money. That really takes people with a very purist view of life at that point to hang around. Otherwise, you will move on. Yeah, there are enough reasons to move on. I think both of us have also been lucky that we've been able to articulate to each other purposes that are generally very long term. Every vision system, every vision statement that we end up writing, every mission statement that we have written, generally has had like a 30, 40, 50-year view. It makes the 5-year ka pain seem, like a temporary blip, and you move on. Finally, more tactically, founders, I think. So one thing that's helped us is both of us are very opposite, like almost polar opposite of each other. On almost every topic, we'll have the complete contrarian take. Only bound by our eventual purpose is the same. So that keeps us both honest, but it encourages an extreme amount of debate and argumentation between us, because both of us will almost always approach every topic with a very different view. It's healthy for the org because everything gets debated out quite religiously. I think we also lucked out because both of us ended up realizing that that's valuable. That having the other person think completely the other way is actually healthy for the org. Finally, more tactical advice: get coaching. If you do find yourselves actually sticking around with the co-founder for more than a few years, get a damn good executive coach or a co-founder coach, whatever you want to call it. Because after 5-6 years, it can get tricky. So we got one exactly the 5-year mark, and the person's now been with us for 5 years. That's really helped.
Sure. Well, that's very useful. I think you've also talked about the fact that founders should almost be close to what they're building, right? In some sense, don't really pull back too much once external leadership has come up and is stepping out of weeds completely, right? Talk to us about how do you strike the balance, right? Because there is also, you do want to people to deliver on what you're going to be holding them accountable for. At the same time, I do believe that founders being very close to where the company is going and giving that TLC that's required often, that customers also deserve, and eventually it's your creation at some level. How do you balance the two, right? And how have you And in that sense, uh, how do you think you bring the newer leadership into the value systems that you might have started the company with?
So we have made a bunch of mistakes on this front. Initially, Ather was very few leaders in that sense, like no lateral hires. So again, as I said, up to 300, 350 people, pretty much the company was just run directly. And by directly, I mean not like, oh, me and Swapna telling everybody what to do. There's very high trust that, oh, all the 300 people know what to do. We're all here together to build this vehicle. So debate kaise ho sakta hai? Like obviously, we're all going to do the right thing for the company. Obviously, right optimization. That didn't work beyond 300 people. But in around 2019 is the time when we by the way, made all these mistakes. So 2019, we also made the mistake of suddenly saying, oh, well, now it's time to, bring in seasoned leadership. And we got a whole bunch of leaders and we decided to step back. Now obviously they know stuff. We should observe. We should let them make their mistakes. And most of them moved out by 2021. They did make the mistakes. People hated them for it. We didn't know how to prevent the toxicity from spiraling out of control. And those are wise people, so they realized it's becoming toxic, so they moved on themselves. Conclusion. Our conclusion has been that a founder should build every part of the organization themselves first, not just the pieces that matter. So like in Ather, it's not just, oh, engineering build karo, product build karo, design build karo, but let the rest pop up themselves. I think that's not worked. It didn't work in operations. It didn't work in marketing. It didn't work in sales. It didn't work in manufacturing, engineering, sourcing, finance, HR, IT, everywhere. Everywhere we made this mistake of saying, well, let's have somebody else, come in and run the show now. This is standard. Come on, these are HR principles. Anybody can run HR. We just need to give them the right budget and make sure they're ethical. Doesn't work because the value systems are not compatible with how you run things as founder. So everybody starts bitching to you. Yeah, this new HR head, like he's an idiot. He doesn't get it. So very painful, slow conclusion for us has been, if there's anything that you're building in the company, the founder should build it first, establish the guiding principle and the ways of working, weigh in on that for 6 to 12 months, hire people in that mold yourselves so that initial resistance is lower, then step back. Then kind of life takes its own thing. And apart from maybe a correction once in every 5-8 years, you should be largely fine. But that's the most important learning. Do not assume that things will just run themselves if they're not critical to the org.
You talked about investing a lot in R&D, and even now earlier this week, I was talking to someone and we were talking about that, hey, large Indian companies should make a much larger investment into R&D because they have the balance sheets to do that. Right? Tell me, what gave you the conviction, right, to build a hardware first company, right, and get the buy-in from investors and get the conviction of investing so much early on, right? And I know there's a bunch of things that you did in-house, a bunch of things where you leverage stuff that was outside, right? So what were the principles that you used out there?
It didn't seem so hard in the early years. I really want to make a really heroic romantic story about it, but it's difficult because the first year when we just spent theorizing and coming up with all these philosophies, basically gave us so many answers and so much conviction that anybody who backed us as investors really knew what they're backing. So we said that, listen, we are going to build a vehicle which will do all of this, and we think there's an opportunity to build a company like Apple, build one of the best product companies out of this country, and the way to do that would be to have a very strong product culture and to have a very strong R&D engine. And building an R&D engine basically means repeatability. So we're not just trying to get this somehow out of the door once. We're going to build something that will keep spamming out good products every year. That'll take us a few years to do it. I didn't know it was going to take us a few years to do it, but I didn't know it was going to take us some time to do it. So when my timeline became 1 year ka 3 year, nobody found it surprising because you are still doing what you said you will do. You were just young, so you didn't know how much money and how much time will it take. But fundamentally, what we wanted to do, I think there was good buy for the few people who did come in. And hence, there was not a constant conflict. It was not like we sold people, listen, don't worry, somehow we'll get this out in 6 months, we'll all be amazing. We didn't sell you that. We sold you this kind of a company that we want to build. So very different pitch, which is why it was okay for people to not find the initial delays surprising, and they backed us through it. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And how did you decide what do you build in house and what do you kind of leverage outside stuff for? Because that's often a temptation in an engineering first, builder first play.
Yeah,
That
there is. We don't make as very good partners generally. That's what I've observed, because of that big fight, big resistance internally. That listen, we can do it ourselves. If this has to be built, we'll do it ourselves. But I think over the years there is good maturity that we should, because there's finite things we can do, we should only do things which have very solid return and are a big differentiation for how we are building is. Or there is no option. Like it could be a very boring piece, but there is no option, so we'll do it in house. It is very important. There is an option outside, but doesn't matter. It's very important. It's very core to how everything works, and it's a big part of a differentiation. So we'll do it in house. And that's pretty much the framework. Like for example, we care about the motor controller. We don't care as much about the motor. Motor is in that sense a little bit of a commoditized tech. Even the controller is a commoditized tech, but control over the controller gives us a lot of algorithm and features for control, which the hardware does not give us. So we bring this in-house, even though others make it. We don't bring this in-house, even though others make that. And that framework has kept percolating down to a healthy part of the org. I wouldn't say everybody gets it. That's impossible. But I think a healthy chunk of the org gets it. And mostly the fact that we then have money at all points to do everything forces the system to then choose and pick the right battles.
early on you mentioned that you don't want to really compete, right? And part of that also reflects in the product portfolio, the price points, and the kind of tactile form factor that came out. Talk to us about how did you develop or how did you work on developing that taste, right? And how has that evolved? I mean, if you have a process for it, how has that evolved over the years?
We have this poster in the office, and that's become a big philosophy for us at product, built for us. And we take it reasonably seriously. We only want to build products that we will be the users of. I think I don't have a formal design training, but I do believe that designers are often taught to not let their own usage biases affect the product development and learn how to step into the shoes of a customer really well. I personally don't fully believe in that. I think if you have to wake up every morning and put on these artificial made up shoes, once in a while you will forget to put those shoes in the morning, and that'll be the morning that you will make all the wrong decisions and they'll come back to bite you. I think it is so much natural and easy, and life is too short to pick up battles that you don't care about anyways. So just pick up stuff that you want to build, that you want to actually do yourselves. So for example, scooter versus motorcycle in the very early days. Now it's very easy, or has been very easy for the last few years. But in the very early stages, there was a big debate that should we build a scooter or a motorcycle? Motorcycles are the bigger chunk of what India sells and builds. I hated motorcycles. I hated the form factor. I hated the fact that there was no storage space, that the seats were not as nice, that the vehicle had no step-through frame. I was a scooter person. I'd loved riding. I'd ridden scooters all my life. I could tell you so much passionate use cases of things we could fix in a scooter. I could tell you nothing about a bike. It's obvious. I'm going to back and find people who will build scooters. Today, when we will be finally forced to build motorcycles, we're not building one until we force ourselves to first develop a taste on motorcycles. So today, there are teams at Ather from product, from design, from engineering who are going on these week-long bike rides. There are these biking courses in Chennai and Pune. So they're literally going, spending a week there,
Amazing.
developing a taste and an opinion for what is a good motorcycle, what is it not a good motorcycle. Like, would I want to sit on this or do I not want to sit on this? And they come back and they argue with people like me who don't have a taste yet. That teaches us all. And eventually I will also go on for this course. And only then will we build a motorcycle. It's not worth it. Like,
amazing. You know, if this was April 1st and you were going to say that this is a JD, I think a lot of people might not have taken it seriously. But this is amazing. This is, I'm sure a lot of founders might be thinking this before I actually start up. Might be a gig worth taking. Talk to us about how important is building the narrative, right? And we're not talking about marketing, it's just building the narrative, because that's what people company is nothing without the narrative. That's what I've started to believe over the years. And that is what people work for, and continue persisting over the years. What's your point of view on that? And how have you kind of consistently, I also know that you guys had a brand and almost like a creative team early on, right? So I'm also curious on how have you approached this?
It has had a creative team for the longest time, I think. The first hire that we had outside of engineering and admin was our current head of creative. So KU joined us in 2015 Feb. So he's finished 10 years now. We've always believed that creatives and design, industrial design, are extremely central. Well, all design, not just industrial, are extremely central and should be brought in first, even before engineering and manufacturing and others. And we've always followed that principle. Storytelling is a different thing, however. That's not necessarily the creative's job. Storytelling is the founder's job. I wouldn't claim that Ather has been very good at storytelling. I think Ather has been poor at storytelling. However, I think Ather has been fantastic at storytelling internally. We haven't really cracked how to tell stories clearly outside. I think our marketing is often really good, but widespread storytelling, like everybody gets that's what this company is doing, is still very much WIP. And I'm aware of that. And I'm okay with it. I think some of these things take time. You don't want to force your DNA too fast. But I think we've been we're very, very, very strong at internal storytelling. That's what I talked about, the honesty, the transparency, and constant communication. That's shaped that at Ather. More tactically, the working style that we follow for product development is now we force ourselves to do demo days before we actually build any product, because a lot of our storytelling really is now down to the product. So now, and we're very aware of the fact that engineering can otherwise run away with it, just force something on ourselves, which we built. So before we ask engineering to build anything, the product and the design team will come up with a proposal. We actually give them a 10 lakh budget to go shoot a really good ad film, like not a TV grade ad film, but a decently good ad film for this concept and vision that they have, with zero actual product work, no concept, no prototype. We encourage them to do zero prototypes, don't do anything, just make a really good ad film for what you want. What is the drug that you're selling that we should really buy, and we'll start building? We do that. We host that at Ather. We actually book out an auditorium. We invite 50 people from all different functions, marketing, manufacturing, sales, all CXOs, वगैरह सब आ जाओ. Hear this pitch. There's a really good ad film these guys have shot. They're going to now do a full launch of it on stage. They're going to follow that with media queries, everything. So not just the press release that Amazon does, we actually do a full launch. We actually probably end up spending 20 lakhs every time this happens once in 3-6 months. I think that's making us a better storyteller from a consumer perspective. As a company, we're still an average storyteller. We're still figuring out how to do this version for the company. We'll figure that out.
Amazing. No, I absolutely love this. We'll turn it over to the audience here.
While you were chatting, I was just looking back at the first time I ever heard of Ather, which was 2018 when you first started the Experience Center in Indranagar. When I attended that, and the whole experience that we got as a customer was the first for India, right? My question for you is, in building this Apple-like company in product in India, did you not encounter the perfectionism problem? Because so often in trying to build the perfect product, we get so stuck in making wrong decisions. So did you all not encounter that?
We did encounter it. And I think we did pay the price for it in the early years. But I think we're lucky that we paid the price in the early years enough that it moderated out some of those extremities in the system. The best thing that helped us is we initially used to think that we should cocoon our design teams, we should cocoon our product teams, let them be like completely isolated. We learned out of those experiences that you should actually bring them in with the marketing and the sales guys very early, and create this joint forum where, and those demo days that I talked about, that really helps sell the idea to the rest of the company. So now you actually have pressure back in the system, right? Because marketing's heard this. They're like, wow, that's amazing. We won that helmet that you are selling, we want that next year, right? The mistake that we made in the early years is, it's a great idea, let's not tell anybody, let's just start building it, right? कहीं से pressure ही नहीं आ रहा है, then the ship kind of keeps running on its own and starts drifting. But having healthy internal pressure by forcing people to sell and then hence be accountable to your own colleagues कि भाई कब आने वाला है, मतलब come on, I've got this annual event, I have to launch this, moderates out some of the extremities.
So I think you talked about like honesty and how it has been helpful to build the culture in Ather and everything else that you have done pretty much in life. So how do you get the courage to follow that path? Because many times when people think of going to that path, they get tempted by short-term gains. Because generally, if you are being less honest or less transparent, you get some short-term gains. Do you have encountered this issue?
Little less, but it depends on what is it that you're chasing. We were not chasing financial outcomes here. We were not chasing media outcome here. We were not chasing, for good or bad, even fundraising here. We were chasing, for the longest time, a certain product we wanted to build. Taking a shortcut on that would defeat the entire reason we started building this. And then after that, we've been building a certain kind of company we want to build. Taking a shortcut would defeat that. So I think being very honest to yourselves as to what you're chasing. Listen, if you're chasing something else, don't call that a shortcut. That's exactly what you were chasing. And you got it, right? Perfect. What's not to like? But if you take a shortcut that defeats the entire purpose of why you started, then that's not taking a shortcut. That's taking a wrong cut. Like you ended up at the wrong alley. You've just not realized it. So I think it's very good to remind yourselves and keep iterating to your teams. What is it that we're doing here, so that you keep each other honest. And it's difficult for one person like a founder to sort of, force all of us down this random shortcut that takes us nowhere.
When you were starting out, deep tech was really something new for India. Now we have generation 2, generation 3 VCs who have set up the fund in India and they use Ather as a cautionary tale. They took 10 years, I need my return in 7. So how do you think the industry is changing?
You could get a return faster, but I would be a bit wary of VC funds who say they're deep tech and say they need a return in 7 freaking years. Like Axel ko Flipkart mein return milne mein 10 saal nikal gaya. So I think you're drinking some random Kool-Aid if you think 7 years mein deep tech return is a good thing to tell a founder. They're not wrong. There are a lot of things to learn from Ather's journey. I just talked about how teams started getting distracted, building unnecessary things in the early years. I don't know how much we could have fast-tracked it. Maybe I do believe we could have saved a year or so. But okay, let me put it this way. We are 12 years in. We are now public. Our EBITDA losses have been shrinking. We're roughly about $2 billion now. I don't think that's a bad outcome. In fact, outside of SaaS, most internet-enabled businesses 10, 12 years in haven't made any meaningful profits or any profits. So I think that's just VCs who hate that they're in deep tech complaining about it. Okay. No, seriously. Like I met VCs who are like, "Arey, itna capex lag jata hai." But like the entire factory that we put up is 100 crores. That's $12 million. That's the marketing budget for like one season for a regular startup. But how is that a lot of capex? Like, you don't have the money. Just say no. I can't invest in this. It's okay. You're an early stage guy. I'll go to a PE. But a lot of that is an incorrect expectation. I'm not saying that there are no deep tech ventures which can give a return in 7 years, but it does sound wrong if somebody says, 7 year mein nahi aaya, to fir you're a failure. I don't know how many businesses have in India delivered an exit and a successful return in 7 years. So don't take it too seriously.
Thanks a lot for coming by. Really appreciate you being so generous with your time on a festival. It's been lovely having you here, and thanks for sharing the story. And thanks for sharing it with such high authenticity and transparency. We absolutely love the conversation.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to me.
That was another episode of -1 from the team at South Park Commons. Make sure to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and find us on social at South Park Commons. And thanks to our friends at Atomic Growth for their support in bringing this episode to life.